Bu Ari sudah hadir.
Baik, saya mulai ya. Perkenalkan semuanya, nama saya Wahyu Budi. Saya beserta teman saya, Ibu Yohana. Kami berdua akan menjadi MC di acara kali ini, ya. Oke, kita mulai ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, greetings of virtue.
Alhamdulillah, puji syukur kehadirat Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, Tuhan semesta alam, atas berkat, rahmat, dan karunia-Nya pada Sabtu yang cerah ini, kita dapat bertemu secara virtual dalam rangka kuliah tamu Prodi Sastra Inggris yang menghadirkan Bapak Andrew Abram dari Java St. Andrew Society, dan beliau juga merupakan General Manager dari Mandarin Oriental Hotel di Jakarta. Kuliah tamu kali ini berjudul Knowledge and Skills to Thrive in International Companies, Sabtu 27 November 2021.
Alhamdulillah, all praises be to God Almighty for the blessings which He has given to us. On this sunny Saturday, we can virtually meet in online public talk for Undira students, which presents Mr. Andrew Abram from Java St. Andrew Society or JSAS. He is also the General Manager of Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Jakarta. The title of the talk is Knowledge and Skills to Thrive in International Companies. Saturday, November 27, 2021.
Yang terhormat Bapak Andrew Abram sebagai Chieftain of Java St. Andrew Society dan menjabat juga sebagai General Manager di Mandarin Oriental Hotel di Jakarta. Dr. Ari Purwanti, M.Ak, Dekan Fakultas Bisnis dan Ilmu Sosial Universitas Nusantara, Bapak Todo Sibuea, SPDM Hum, Ketua Program Studi Sastra Inggris Universitas Nusantara, serta yang kami hormati juga Bapak Ibu Prodi, Prodi, Bapak Ibu dosen, dan seluruh peserta webinar yang tidak dapat saya sebutkan satu persatu.
The Honorable Mr. Andrew Abram, as the Chieftain of Java St. Andrew Society and as the General Manager of Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Jakarta, Dr. Ari Purwanti, M.Ak, as the Dean of Faculty of Business and Social Studies of Nusantara University, and Mr. Todo Sibuea, SPDM Hum, as the Head of English Literature Department of Nusantara University, and also to all Honorable Head of Undergraduate Programs of Nusantara University, lecturers, and webinar participants that I cannot mention one by one.
Kami mengucapkan terima kasih kepada narasumber yang telah bersedia meluangkan waktunya untuk berbagi pengetahuan kepada seluruh mahasiswa Universitas Nusantara, serta saya ucapkan juga terima kasih kepada seluruh peserta yang telah bersedia meluangkan waktunya untuk mengikuti kegiatan rutin kami, yaitu kuliah tamu online. Semoga bersama-sama kita dapat mengambil pelajaran dari setiap kegiatan-kegiatan webinar yang telah diselenggarakan.
We would like to express our sincere appreciation to the speaker who has been willing to take the time to share his knowledge with all the Nusantara University students, and we would like to thank all participants who have been willing to join in our routine activity, namely Kuliah Tamu Online. Hopefully, we can take valuable lessons and knowledge from every webinar event that has been held.
Baik, selanjutnya mari kita menyanyikan lagu Kebangsaan Indonesia Raya, dilanjutkan dengan Mars Universitas Nusantara.
As the first agenda of today's event, we are going to sing the national anthem of Indonesia and followed by Nusantara University's hymn and Mars.
Kepada para hadirin dimohon untuk berdiri.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we kindly invite you to stand.
Krishna
Hadirin dipersilahkan duduk kembali.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to sit.
Baik, demi kelancaran acara hingga selesai, marilah bersama-sama kita memanjatkan doa demi kelancaran acara hari ini. Kepada Bapak Hamdin, kami persilahkan.
Before we begin the webinar, let us pray for this event will run successfully. We would like to invite Mr. Hamdin to lead the prayer. To Mr. Hamdin, the time is yours.
Ya, terima kasih Bu Yohana dan Pak Wahyu. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera buat kita semua. Yang saya hormati Dekan FBIS Undira, yang saya hormati Prodi Sastra Undira, yang saya hormati Kaprodi jurusan lain di Undira beserta Prodi, yang saya hormati juga rekan dosen Sasing dan prodi-prodi lainnya yang sempat hadir pada kesempatan ini, dan yang saya hormati juga dan yang saya banggakan juga para mahasiswa dan mahasiswi yang hadir pada kesempatan ini. Izinkan saya memimpin doa sebelum memulai acara ini. Dan marilah kita tundukkan kepala, hati, dan jiwa kita kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Esa untuk memohon keriduan dan keberkahannya atas apa yang akan kita laksanakan hari ini. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, dengan mengucapkan puji serta syukur kehadirat-Mu atas segala rahmat dan karunia-Mu yang telah Engkau limpahkan kepada kami. Pada pertemuan hari ini, dengan penuh keakraban dan bahagia, kami memohon keberkahan dan ridho-Mu Tuhan dalam acara yang akan kami laksanakan pagi ini. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, kuliah tamu ini sangat besar sekali arti dan maknanya bagi kami, terutama untuk menjalin hubungan silaturahmi di antara para mahasiswa dan dosen, sekaligus meningkatkan kompetensi wawasan dan skill kami untuk bisa berhasil di masa yang akan datang. Untuk itu, ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, tanamkan sifat dan kasih sayang-Mu kepada kami, sehingga kami dapat berkiprah dan menjadi lebih baik dari hari kemarin, dan mudah-mudahan kami bisa berkarir baik di bidang baik skala lokal, nasional, maupun internasional. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, jadikanlah acara kuliah tamu ini sebagai majelis ilmu yang bermanfaat dan membuahkan hasil untuk membangun generasi bangsa yang berwawasan luas dan berguna bagi bangsa serta negara kami. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, acara ini ditujukan tidak lain hanya untuk memperoleh ridho dan keberkahan-Mu semata. Untuk itu, berilah kami petunjuk dan bimbingan agar kami dapat menjalankannya dengan baik, demi mencerdaskan dan mensejahterakan kehidupan masyarakat kami di masa yang akan datang. Ya Allah, ya Tuhan kami, jadikanlah kami semua yang hadir di sini menjadi calon sarjana, akademisi, pengusaha, ilmuwan, profesional, serta profesi-profesi lainnya yang memiliki sifat jujur, berintegritas, berwawasan luas, dan bertanggung jawab bagi diri sendiri, keluarga, bangsa, dan negara. Jika kami memimpin, jadikanlah kami pemimpin yang amanah. Jika kami rakyat biasa, jadikanlah kami rakyat yang amanah. Karena kami yakin dengan amanah akan mendatangkan ridho dan keberkahan-Mu. Ya Tuhan kami, hanya kepadamu kami melakukan pengabdian, dan hanya kepadamu kami memohon pertolongan. Anugerahkanlah kepada kami tekad, kekuatan, keikhlasan, perlindungan, dan bimbingan untuk menjalankan amanah yang diberikan kepada kami untuk berkarya demi pengabdian padamu semata. Amin, 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 ya Rabbal Alamin. Demikian doa dari saya, kurang lebihnya mohon maaf. Saya kembalikan kepada MC Bu Yohana dan Pak Wahyu.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Hamdin. Untuk mengawali acara hari ini, mari kita dengarkan sambutan dari Dekan Fakultas Bisnis dan Ilmu Sosial Universitas Dian Nusantara. Kepada Dr. Ari Purwanti, kami persilahkan.
We are continuing to the next agenda, the welcoming and opening remarks. We would like to invite the Dean of Faculty of Business and Social Studies of Nusantara University to deliver the welcoming remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Ari Purwanti.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Todo and the teams, and our honorable lecturers and all my students. How are you? I hope you are all in a good health. Actually, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you to this wonderful general lecture. I'm very thankful to you, Mr. Andrew Abram. It's already here, Mr. Andrew Abram. It's already.
I'm afraid he's not. He hasn't joined yet for now.
Okay. Yeah, I'm very thankful to Mr. Andy actually here. Okay. I also wish to thanks to the committees who have organized this wonderful event. And as you know, vision of becoming a trusted and professional university with global insight in effort to meet the needs of human resources in industry and entrepreneurship. So it's such an honor for me to speak on behalf of University of Nusantara, and let me begin by giving you a warm welcome to this general lecture with topic knowledge and skill to thrive in international companies. Before we get started, I would like to express my appreciation to the team, public relation, IT departments, and it's already here, Mr. Andrew. How are you, Mr. Andrew? Mr. Andy, you still
Yes, good morning, selamat pagi, apa kabar?
Fine.
Selamat pagi, Pak.
Selamat pagi.
Morning, Mr.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Actually, I've already saw you, I don't know, maybe the last 3 months before, and everybody's call you Mr. Andy, right?
That's right.
Some people call Mr. Andy.
But that's one of them.
I met you in Oriental Mandarin Hotel, actually.
Yes, that's right. Good.
Nice. Okay. Before I have to speak in opening speech, allow me to say something in this event, Mr. Andy. Okay. I would like to express my appreciation to the team, public relation, IT departments, Miss Yohana, Pak Wahyu, Mr. Wahyu, and Mr. Todo and the teams, actually. It's a great, who generously helped us to make this general lecture come true. And I think we couldn't have done it without you. Okay, in today's general lecture, I think we would learn how knowledge and skill to thrive in international company, and this webinar event was held as a medium to broaden the horizon of our students on how international companies can thrive through increasing the knowledge and skill of their resources, I think. And I hope this webinar or this general lecture, I think, will help our students build their business knowledge and skill. So, well, I don't want to take too much of your time, and because of Mr. Andy is already here, I need to hand over it to Mr. Wahyu and Miss Yohana, and our today MC to introduce our moderator, Mr. Todo. Thank you, Mr. Todo, and our guest speaker, Mr. Andy, to the all participants. I would like to say once more on behalf of University of Nusantara, welcome to this general lecture, and thank you very much for attending this event, and I wish all the participants good luck. Okay, I turn it back to Miss Yohana and Mr. Wahyu, please. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih, Bu Ari.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Bu Ari.
Selanjutnya kami persilahkan Ketua Program Studi Sastra Inggris Universitas Dian Nusantara untuk memberikan sambutan sekaligus membuka acara kuliah tamu online pada hari ini. Kepada Bapak Todo Sibuea kami persilahkan.
Next, we are going to listen to the welcoming speech from Mr. Todo Sibuea as the head of English Literature Department of Dian Nusantara University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Todo Sibuea.
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's an honor for us to have the Dean of Fakultas Bisnis and Ilmu Sosial, Dr. Ari Purwanti. We greatly appreciate your presence. And of course, our guest speaker, Mr. Andrew Abram, the Chieftain of Java St. Andrew Society, and he is also the General Manager of Mandarin Oriental. At first, we didn't know that Mr. Abram is a general manager of a famous hotel in Jakarta. We thought we are just inviting the chieftain of Java St. Andrew, but it turned out that he's also the GM of Mandarin Oriental. So it's really an honor for us, Mr. Abram. And this event is our regular. This event is our regular activity at English Department of Universitas Dian Nusantara. We wish we could have this meeting on site right at Undira campus, but the current situation doesn't give us that luxury. Nevertheless, we are happy that Mr. Abram accepts our proposal to be a speaker on this webinar, and this event is also made possible by the work of Mr. Wahyu Budi, who has been active in approaching Mr. Abram via email exchange. And also, I think it's best that we give applause to Mr. Wahyu for making this event possible.
Thank you, Pak. It's a pleasure.
Coming to the topic of our webinar, this webinar is our effort to give our students a chance to listen and watch the presentation of an English speaker, because it is part of our students' learning process at English department. And this webinar is also a chance for students to have a conversation with an English speaker. So this will allow them an opportunity to practice the English that they have been learning so far at Undira. Our today's topic is about knowledge and skills to thrive in international companies. We picked this topic because we think right now there are many Indonesians who have become expatriates in foreign countries. They do not only work, but also live in foreign countries. However, the number of Indonesian expatriates are small in comparison to Indian and Chinese expatriates. So therefore, we invite Mr. Abram to share your experience as an expatriate yourself about the strategies that Indonesian can copy and also apply in order to be able to work in international companies and also to work abroad. I hope your experience, your expertise as expatriates who have been working in many international companies and foreign countries, you can give us enlightenment so our students can learn something from our webinar today, and it will inspire them and broaden their perspective about working in international companies or working abroad. So without further ado, I think I'm going to give the speaking opportunity to Mr. Abram. So Mr. Abram, over to you.
Thank you, Terima kasih. I don't know who's doing who has my slides.
That would be me, Pak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can put them on the screen.
Okay.
And then I'll just say, if you're comfortable, I'll just say next, and then you can flick on to the next slide. Is that okay?
Yeah, that would be okay.
Okay, that's very kind. And also, who's Cecilia? She keeps interrupting the speaker. Is there someone called Cecilia that keeps turning her mic off or on? Can she turn her mic off, please?
I think
Teman-teman mahasiswa, saya mohon untuk menonaktifkan mikrofon masing-masing ya. Tolong perhatikan agar acara ini bisa berlangsung dengan baik. Ya, tolong nonaktifkan mikrofon masing-masing.
Good, thank you. Okay, the first slide, which is that's fine, that's perfect. We'll just start with that one. Yeah, if you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much. It's an honor to be asked to speak or give my thoughts this morning. And yes, I am a Scotsman. So if you live in the UK, there would be some people laughing that a Scotsman is speaking at an English literature presentation. Okay, but that's the British sense of humor. But I can speak English, so I hope you can understand what I'm going to share with you this morning. My presentation will be relatively brief, but what I really hope we can have is at the end of the presentation some questions, because I think that is where the real value of these interactions lies, in the questions. So remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question, there's only a stupid answer. So the pressure is on me, not on you, the delegates listening to what I have to say this morning. Yeah. So I want to keep it relatively brief because people's attention it's a Saturday morning may not be as sharp as Monday morning. But my name, next slide, please, if you don't mind.
Yes.
My name is Andy Abram. Next, please. And I'm the chieftain of the Java St. Andrews Society and also the general manager of Mandarin Oriental, Jakarta. The Java St. Andrews Society has been active here in Indonesia for over 100 years. Wow. And I think that is a very interesting point to start our discussion in terms of the cultural immersion of our Scottish community in this part of the world. It's always been very close, very warm, and very important. And the role of the Java St. Andrews Society is to bring a little bit of Scotland to Java. So people in Indonesia, but we are in Java, if they want to know more about Scotland, hopefully our society can help them and educate them on our country as well. In my role as general manager of Mandarin Oriental, I've been here since 2004 in Jakarta. For a period of 12 years, there was a 4-year gap in that 12-year period from 2012 to 2017. So I had been here in Java, in Jakarta for a total of 12 years. I'm married to an Indonesian and I have 3 wonderful children. So I love being here. When I left Scotland in 1995, I had no idea I would marry an Indonesian and I had no idea I was going to be living in Indonesia. So there you go. I think that's a great place to start. If you're young, the journey is ahead of you and that's exciting. If you don't find that exciting, then probably you're going to be having a bit of a challenge. You've got to be brave and you've got to want to explore. It's a wonderful world that we live in. Yeah. My career has been with Intercontinental for 10 years, with Jumeirah in the Middle East for 5.5 years. There's a date, an incorrect date there. Then with Mandarin Oriental from 2003 to 2013 and back with them again in 2017. So a great company to work for. Next. What I want to go through are a number of slides really which focuses on the essential skills that we think Mandarin Oriental as an international company think and focus on need, okay, and also what are we looking for in potential colleagues to join our organization. I think the first point is when people come into our organization, they don't know as much as they would know after 10 years. But so what we're looking for is their attitude, their personality, their energy, and intelligence, okay? These are the DNA building blocks that we need to make a colleague successful. And when you bring a colleague into your organization, you're bringing them in not just for the success of the organization, but for the success of that individual. Okay, they are an asset to the company. Okay, this is very, very important to understand that. Okay, next. So there are 11, so bear with me, there are 11 areas I want to focus on this morning. Each of them will be quite brief. So again, I really would encourage you to jot down any questions you may have in regard to these 11 performance indicators or skills that we are looking at in individuals, okay? So please, I would love questions at the end. I've said it about 3 times now, so hopefully I'll get some questions, yeah? Right, next slide, please.
Yeah.
So cultural sensitivity. Well, I left Scotland in 1995, and I've worked in 7 countries, okay, since then. And as an employee of an international company, you know, and as a manager and leader in an international company, my job, and this applies to you too, is not to change the culture of the country you're working in. That is the unique and special part of the country. Indonesia is a prime example for hospitality. We are gifted with the most wonderful passion and friendliness and wanting to care of probably any country in the world. As a leader, my job is to understand the company culture, okay? The company culture and how we protect and build and drive the company culture against the backdrop of the local culture. Remember, we have international guests who are coming from every corner of the globe. So the DNA of the company and the brand is about the people, okay? So it's the job of us as leaders to make sure we protect and build and grow the brand while still being culturally sensitive to the various countries we operate in. And that's fun, it's exciting, and it can be challenging. Next, please. Interpersonal skills. This is one of the most interesting and exciting parts of leading teams, managing teams, building teams, is the interpersonal skills and being able to do this at all levels as a leader. This is very, very important. We are all small cogs in a big machine, okay? And that machine is the company, whatever it's making, delivering, servicing. And if one of those cogs is not working, like in a watch, then the whole machine can break down. So we must value every colleague and interpersonal skills between the leader and his team, between team members, between departments, okay, that are aligned and going in the same direction is critical, okay? So for example, at Mandarin Oriental, we're here to surprise and delight our guests, whatever we do and whatever job we have in the organization. So clarity is very important, and consistency in your message helps with interpersonal skills. Everyone is important, and we'll talk a bit more about this later on. Next slide, please. Managerial flexibility covers many different areas, but to keep it on point, in this world we live in today, it's like a storm, choppy seas, changing, and demand increasing, demand falling away. COVID has been a great example of how businesses have had to adapt to a completely different operating environment, okay? How to reduce loss, okay? How to maintain your biggest asset, which is your people, okay? So that when we come out of COVID, we still have our talent and we can still deliver the best to our customers. Very, very important. So yes, we focus on profitability, but people are what drive profitability. People as in your internal customers, that's us, the staff, and the external customers, the people staying in your hotel or buying your product. Okay, so managerial flexibility You can't say we've always done it this way, therefore we're always going to do it this way. It doesn't work that way anymore. The world is far more dynamic, it's far better connected, and change happens extremely quickly. Okay, so being agile, okay, being nippy and flexible is a key quality for a manager. Next slide, please. Which leads on to adaptive leadership. Okay, as leaders, we have our own style. Okay, I have my style as a Scottish person and the way I lead. But at the end of the day, your audience is dynamic. Okay, your audience is dynamic, and they have different hot buttons and things that motivate them. Okay, so as a leader, you must be aware and self-aware of what is going on around you with your teams. In this day and age, people are better educated, they're better connected, and they can communicate far more quickly. Maybe not more effectively, but they can certainly communicate far more quickly. Yep. Okay. So how you adapt yourself while staying true to your own values, okay, that is also important. Okay, and that can be quite difficult. Okay, you have to be adaptive, but you have to stay true to your values. And that's something when you work in different countries, going back to the cultural aspect, is this is the way people do it in this country. That's challenging because that's not the way they do it in my country. Hold on. You are leading a business in someone else's country with someone else's people. So you can still be true to your values, hardworking, whatever those are, but you have to understand the people you're working with and the customers. Next. International motivation. So don't just think local, think global. And of course, if you are interested in moving overseas, then of course you need to understand what's going on in the world outside of Indonesia. But even if you're not going overseas and you're working in Indonesia, you still need to know what's going on in the world around you. And you don't need to look very far here in Indonesia to some of the Indonesian companies that are world-class. Astra, for example, is not just making motorbikes and cars, it's driving technology, it's driving huge innovative projects, which are cutting edge and leading in certain fields in the world. And that is a huge credit. So being in an international environment doesn't always mean you have to get on a plane and go and work in Singapore or Tokyo or New York. There's a lot going on right here in your own country where you need to think like an international player and not a local player. And this is important, right? Next, please. Intercultural competence. Again, we're sort of going back to a similar theme, and this comes up throughout the presentation in the 11 KPIs. And therefore, this again really, I think, amplifies the importance of culture, interculture, adaptability as a leader as you grow in an organization. Yep. Respecting the difference in work styles in your host country, but still staying true to the values, the international values of your brand. Remember, your customers are international, certainly in Mandarin Oriental Hotel. I'll tell you a story. When I arrived here in 2004, the Mandarin Oriental had been open since 1978, and it was a unionized hotel. Nothing wrong with that. Unions can be very valuable. But the union were running the hotel. And I remember my first meeting, I suggested to the union that we should start English classes for our staff at the hotel. And the union said, no, we're Indonesian. We don't need English classes. We speak Bahasa. I said, yes, but the customers are international. No. We don't want English classes. So, I mean, those days have gone. I wasn't laughing when they told me that. I thought, oh my goodness, but telling the story now is quite amusing. Next, please. Thank you. Ability to work with limited resources. And this is something, again, that is a skill a leader must have. Sometimes resources are not available and you have to be resourceful, okay? And someone found that very funny. Who's laughing? How great. It wasn't even a joke. Resourceful. And particularly in the last 2 years with COVID, there's been very little opportunity to make profit. So therefore you have to still run your business with limited funds. So you have to think resourcefully, okay? And that is where real leadership shines through. Anyone can be successful if you throw money at something. You may not make profit, but being resourceful is a key quality you need to have as a leader, whether it's in your people, your product, or your promotion. Next, please. And again, we come back to understanding of international business. Again, you need to, if you want to get into the international field, have a desire and a proactive desire to read, understand, learn about what is going on in the world, and to be, while being culturally sensitive, don't be sensitive about everything. You know, you're going to get little frights and little shocks and wow, I didn't know that, and gosh, but you have to be tough, okay? You have to be tough to get through those. If you go to some countries in Europe, the way people communicate is completely different to the way people communicate here in Indonesia, which can be soft and kind, and, you know, but if you go to somewhere like Scotland, if someone wants you to do something, they'll tell you, do it now. And there may not even be a please, or there may not even be a thank you. There we go. Next, please. And again, interest in international etiquette. We come back again to the cultural aspect. We come back again to, while you do it this way in your country, people do it differently in other countries, whether it's in terms of their business practices or their personal practices, or even down to simple things like greeting, can have a huge impact on how people perceive you as a leader or as a manager, how you behave and respect those people you work with. If they respect you and see that you're taking time to learn and care, you will go much further, much quicker. Yep. And this is for your colleagues, the people you work with, and also for your customers. And what's more, you will enjoy it even more. Next, please. Stress management, or mental health, or whatever we call this today, is a very, very current topic, and something that we here at Mandarin Oriental are very much focused on for our colleagues as well. It's managing stress, balancing your life while being committed to your career and your family. So there's a lot of balls you need to juggle here to try and get that balance. No personal life outside of work can be very negative to your well-being. So managing your work, prioritizing your work, passion is vital. As I said, energy, intelligence is vital, but you also need to be practical and efficient, okay? At the end of the day, it's your body, it's your health, okay? And you only have one shot. This is not a dress rehearsal. Life is not a dress rehearsal. Today, when it's gone, never comes back, all right? So remember that. If you enjoy your work, that also contributes to your health, because your mental health is very important to your physical health, yeah? I know that. I'm 60 years old. You wouldn't think so. Okay, next, please. Functional and technical skills, very, very important. You need to know what you're doing, okay? You need to know what you're doing. And that is your foundation. That is your foundation stone, or as you grow your career. Now, if I look at my job, I'm a general manager and I have a head of finance. I have a head of engineering. I have a head of food and beverage. I have a head of human resources, I have a hotel man, I have specialists that report into me. I don't know as much about engineering as my director of engineering. I don't know as much about finance as my director of finance. That's their job. Okay. My job is to align the team, okay, to make sure we're going in one direction and drive synergies, compatibility in that leadership team, okay, for the benefit of the staff and then the benefit of the business. Okay, my speciality is sales and marketing. That's where I started my career. So you need to know your technical skills, foundation, but you need to also let your people, let your specialists do their job. That's important, yeah? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of my little talk, which I hope maybe has inspired some of you to make some notes, to ask some questions. Okay, it's a very, very big subject. It's a huge subject, and to try and bring it into a form where people can sort of keep focus for 15 minutes is quite tough. So I hope that's been helpful. I hope it's been valuable. I hope I've spoken clearly enough for everyone. And I would welcome any questions. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Abram. That was a great explanation and presentation. You gave us a very brief explanation, but it is very compact and it has a lot of the essential points that I think we can understand quite easily. So I'd like to, I'm interested at one point that you touched in your presentation. You said about being able to adapt to the local custom. So at the opening of your presentation, you said that you've been working in various countries. I noticed that you used to work in China and also in Arabic country. So what did you do to adapt to the local culture in China and in Arab? I mean, did you receive special training for that? What did you do to enable you to adapt so you can work alongside the Arabic co-worker and Chinese co-worker?
Very, very good question. Thank you. It's funny, you know, for the hotel business, we're not good at, how can I put it? When we transfer someone to another country, we tend to just let them get on with it. If you work for a company like Rolls-Royce or IBM or Apple, when you get transferred to another country, you're given 3 months to travel the country, you're given lessons in the local language, you're prepared to be immersed into that culture, where the hotel business isn't very good at that, which is ironic because we're in the business of hospitality. To answer your question, actually, probably the Middle East is not the best example because really you don't work with Arabs, certainly in Dubai. But let me just step back. My first overseas posting was actually in Oman, the Sultanate of Oman, also in the Arabian Peninsula, where you do work with the local Omanis. And I had no idea. I mean, I landed there. I thought everyone's wearing headgear and sort of dresses. What's this all about? I mean, I'd done a bit of research. I mean, so I think what you need to do, what I've done, and I did the same in China, where my perception of China was going to be cold and polluted and no one spoke any English. Completely the opposite. I think, you know, you have to go in with an open mind, okay? Do a little bit of research, but you're never going to really get it until you're there. Learn a few local words. I know this sounds very simple, but it's very powerful. Learn a few simple words. Show humility. I'm always going to be a Scottish person. I'm never going to be an Indonesian person. So, and that's fine. That's okay. But show humility, I think, is very, very important when you go into a new cultural environment. Not subservience or humbleness. I mean, I think there's a balance here. You know, you're proud to be Indonesian. I'm not sombong, but I'm Indonesian, and we're the 4th biggest country in the world. So hello, hold on. But showing humility and asking questions and not assuming. Okay, this is that I think is, and that was advice that was given to me by a boss many years ago, and it's advice I've stuck to, and it's never let me down. People then relate to you. They know you're a visitor to your country. They know they call you various things. They call you aliens, expats. They call you lots of things. Yeah. But humility, very important. A desire to find out about the country. Focus on things you like about that country, because that gives you a positive mindset, whether it's the food or it's the people or it's the entertainment or it's the art or the culture. Show an interest in that country to the people that live there. And again, they will respond to you positively. And that's human nature. So you look at human nature, how human people react to each other on the basics of how we operate. I think that's very important. Yeah. So it's a rather sort of homey explanation. Yeah. But I think that's probably right. We can go to the textbooks, but I think that's worked for me, and it's given me tremendous enjoyment.
Thank you, Mr. Abram. Jadi tadi Bapak Abram memberikan penjelasan strategi yang beliau terapkan dalam karirnya di industri perhotelan ketika dia bekerja di tempat-tempat yang asing seperti Timur Tengah, kemudian Cina. Beliau, Pak Abram, berusaha untuk mempelajari kebiasaan lokal, yang mempelajari sedikit tentang bahasa Arab untuk memudahkan interaksi. Jadi walaupun Pak Abram tidak sampai menguasai bahasa Cina 100%, bahasa Arab 100%, tapi setidaknya dengan menguasai istilah-istilah dalam bahasa setempat itu membantu Pak Abram dalam membangun hubungan baik dengan rekan-rekan kerjanya. Dan juga ketika berada di negara asing, selalu terapkan keinginan untuk berpikiran terbuka. Jadi be open-minded. Jadi jangan terpaku pada persepsi. Jadi tadi Pak Abram membagikan ketika dia mendapatkan penugasan di Tionghoa, Republik Rakyat Tionghoa, Pak Abram berpikir negara Tionghoa ini pasti dingin, penuh polusi, tetapi ketika Pak Abram sudah berada 1 bulan di Tionghoa, ternyata persepsinya berubah. Ternyata RRT tidak seperti yang ia bayangkan, tidak seperti yang ia lihat di televisi. Jadi be open-minded, show humility, ya, tunjukkan kerendahan hati, tapi jangan rendah diri. Ya, jadi boleh rendah hati, tapi tidak rendah diri. Dan banyak bertanya. Jangan pernah ragu, bosan untuk bertanya. Bagaimanapun juga sebagai ketika orang Indonesia atau sebagai seorang warga Skotlandia yang bekerja di Cina, di Indonesia, Pak Abram adalah orang asing, maka perlu sekali bagi dia untuk mempelajari kebiasaan setempat. Maka bagi teman-teman mahasiswa, kalau suatu hari nanti mendapatkan kesempatan bekerja di luar negeri, entah itu di Asia Tenggara atau di Afrika atau di Eropa, maka berusahalah untuk mempelajari kebiasaan-kebiasaan setempat agar mudah saat harus bekerja sama dengan rekan satu kantor. Tentunya tidak juga melepaskan identitas sebagai orang Indonesia. Jadi orang Indonesia tetap orang Indonesia dimanapun dia berada, namun dia juga harus bisa beradaptasi dengan rekan kerja setempat atau situasi di tempat kerjanya. Baiklah, apakah ada dari teman-teman yang mau bertanya? Silakan satu persatu ya. Mariati, perhaps, do you want to ask any question to Mr. Abram? Oh, Vita Inora, oke. Vita, silakan unmute mikrofonnya.
Hello, I'm Vita Inora Dunamis from English Literature course. I want to ask, is it the COVID-19 bring a big cost from the international companies? Thank you, sir.
Your question is, did COVID-19 bring a big cost? Did it cost companies a lot of money? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I think the short answer to that question is yes, huge impact on companies in all, or not, well, mainly in a lot of areas. Some were managed to flourish. So for us, it was going from an occupancy of 60% to 1% in the hotel. So you can imagine the money stops coming in. We're very lucky at Mandarin Oriental, Jakarta, because we own this hotel, and our owners are a company called Jardine Matheson, an international company whose roots actually are in Scotland. That's just a coincidence. And Jardine Matheson also is a majority shareholder of Astra here in Indonesia, which many people don't know. So they've been very supportive of us throughout the COVID scenario. What companies focused on was how could they reduce their cash burn, okay? And that's what we did here in Jakarta. That's what we did in all our hotels around the world. How can they reduce cash burn? And how do we protect our brand? How do we protect our workforce? And here in Jakarta, we did not make anyone redundant throughout COVID. Our line staff continued to receive their full salary. Senior management did not. We took a substantial pay cut, but that's okay because it helps the majority. And we were able to protect our colleagues and support them when they were working from home, support their families with vocational training, online training to keep people engaged and interested, not just how to serve a cup of tea, but how to mend a broken pipe, how to repair your motorbike, things that are useful when you're stuck at home doing nothing. So yeah, but in short, in answer to your question, it's been extremely difficult for many companies over the last 18 months, and it's not over. I mean, now we're hearing about more variants of COVID coming up and maybe more closures of international travel. So it's tough. But here in Indonesia, we're lucky. We have huge support from the government. We have a lot of business from the government now. We have quarantine business here at the hotel. We have domestic staycation business here. So the domestic market of Indonesia is hugely important for all of us, not just the hotel business, but for many companies, which is great and sort of to a certain extent protects us during this difficult period. Yep. I hope that answers your question, but thank you for your question.
Thank you, sir.
Ya, silakan teman-teman yang ingin bertanya.
Pak Todo boleh dibantu translate nggak?
Oh, boleh. Silakan, Mariati.
Saya ingin bertanya nih, apakah di dunia perhotelan ini kan pandemi nih, itu memberikan dampak buruk juga nggak kayak seperti di negara Indonesia itu juga? Kayak ini kan kalau di negara Indonesia itu kan kayak berdampak banget nih, kayak pandemi nih, hotel-hotel sepi. Nah, apakah di luar negeri itu sama juga enggak gitu?
Oh, baik. Ya, terima kasih Mariati.
Iya, sama-sama Pak.
So, Mr. Abram, there's a question from one of our students. Her name is Mariati, and she asked a question that, so in Indonesia, many hotels suffer a lot because of the COVID pandemic. So the occupancy rate is very low, and people don't travel much during 2020 and 2021. And she's wondering, does the same thing happen to the hotels abroad in Europe, in Africa, Middle East?
Thank you, Mariati. I see that you're in your car. Did you buy your car from Astra? Anyway, thank you for your question. And yes, I mean, everyone has suffered. Everyone has suffered. I mean, our hotel in New York was shut for a year, closed, nothing. So the whole hospitality industry has suffered terribly. Hotels, travel agents, airlines, tour companies, bus companies, everyone has suffered because people weren't allowed to travel. And where we are lucky is we're part of a bigger international brand. So that helps us. Now, if you look at New York now, it's very busy. Our hotel there is almost running at full occupancy with an average rate of $1,000 a night. I mean, so that now helps us. We're busy in Jakarta. We're very lucky. We're running about 65% month to date, but with an average rate of about $125. Not enough to make profit. It's very expensive to run hotels. Yeah, think about it carefully. If you want to invest in hotels, think carefully. But so yeah, it's everyone's suffering across the world, and depends on how countries regulate and restrict travel. Okay, if domestic travel is restricted, then there's nothing happening. So I don't know, that mean that you may need to have this translated. So I think I probably said enough, Mariata. Thank you for your question. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Abram. Jadi Mariati tadi Pak Abram menjawab bahwa industri hotel di luar negeri mengalami kesulitan yang sama dengan hotel-hotel di Indonesia. Jadi tadi sebagai contoh, hotel Mandarin Oriental di New York itu tutup 1 tahun penuh. 1 tahun penuh tutup. Jadi semua hotel di dunia mengalami kesulitan yang sama. Jadi karena restriksi dalam mobilitas, banyak penerbangan luar negeri antar negara yang ditutup, banyak negara yang menutup penerbangan, menutup bandara. Jadi otomatis itu semua berdampak ke industri hospitality, perusahaan-perusahaan travel, kemudian penerbangan, maskapai penerbangan terutama. Nah, jadi tapi itu semua tergantung juga kebijakan negara karena beda-beda setiap negara. Ada negara yang masih memperbolehkan pesawat luar negeri datang, ada yang menutup bandara total. Jadi tapi secara umum sih memang semuanya mengalami kesulitan yang sama, dan tadi Pak Abram mengatakan bahwa bisnis hotel itu bisnis yang sulit, tidak gampang, dan tadi Pak Abram juga menyarankan agar berpikir 10 kali kalau ingin memulai bisnis di perhotelan. Itu banyak pengeluarannya itu sangat besar sekali.
Oke, terima kasih Mr. Todo.
Mr. Abram, I have another question. So when you work, whether you work in your country or you work abroad, you probably will have friction with your coworker, with your superior. So there can be a problem at workplace. So what can you suggest to us how to handle friction with coworkers of different nationality, different culture?
Wow, good question. Yeah. Should ask my director of HR that question, not me. Communication is got to be the most important tool a leader, a manager has. Okay, communication, understanding, listening, preempting problems. As a manager, don't get yourself into a corner. If you don't do this, I'm going to give, if you don't do this, then you're going to be disciplined, and that's the end of the discussion. If you start giving ultimatums, yeah, it's a dangerous place to go, right? Because then you're forcing people, and they may say yes, but actually they really mean no. So leading by consensus I don't believe that is also not necessarily the best way to do it either, but you have to inspire your people, okay, to want to take a direction. Now, if that's the direction they want, that's even better because they own that journey, and that obviously is the best way to do it. But when there's a conflict situation, you know, you've got a choice. You can, because it takes two to make something work, and it takes two to make something go wrong. And I think if you have that attitude and not say, well, it's their fault, not my fault, then you're going to have problems. And certainly myself as a leader, if something goes wrong in a relationship or something is going wrong in a relationship, I will quietly sit back and ask myself the question, what have I done to make this happen? What have I done, or what could I do differently? I may not necessarily go to that colleague and say, hey, sorry, it's my fault, because it may not be, but how do we move forward in a positive way? Okay, because as a leader, and I say leader because it's just easier to use that word, you also have to take responsibility and reflect. Because let's face it, not every day is blue sky and sunshine. We have good days and we have bad days, all of us. It's human nature. What could I have done differently? What do I learn from that? Yeah. So I think conflict is something you should not be frightened of, okay? Because it's going to happen. It's life. It's not the Garden of Eden. It's not harmony and beauty and we love each other every day. It doesn't work that way. So conflict is not something to be frightened of. Conflict is an opportunity to say, hey, wow, okay, what's going wrong here? What are we learning from this? How can we get it back on track? And by getting it back on track, you can have a chance to increase positivity much more. It's like a guest. When a guest complains, if you get them back on your side, they become a more loyal guest because you made that extra effort to get it right and put it right with them, for them, whatever way you put it. So I think conflict is going to happen if you're a leader. One could argue if you're not leading, there'll be no conflict. If you are leading, you're going to get conflict. It's not something I encourage. I certainly don't encourage conflict between my team members. Some leaders do that because it makes them more powerful. I think it's extremely negative. But conflict is something, it's an opportunity, and communication is a great soothing ointment to make it better.
Great. Wow, I like listening to your perception about managing conflict. So, jadi tadi teman-teman saya bertanya kepada Pak Andrew pengalaman beliau sebagai yang sudah malang melintang di perusahaan asing, bagaimana mengatasi konflik di tempat kerja saat berhadapan dengan teman-teman yang berbeda negara, berbeda kebangsaan. Kalau kita bekerja di perusahaan internasional, kita pasti akan mengalami konflik dengan rekan kerja atau dengan atasan. Dan tadi Pak Andrew memberikan penjelasan, sebaiknya konflik diatasi dengan cara komunikasi. Jadi apabila Anda bekerja, teman-teman bekerja di perusahaan asing, dengan punya rekan kerja yang berbeda kebangsaan, berbeda budaya, apabila gesekan itu pasti akan terjadi, masalah pasti akan timbul, tapi jangan jangan merasa itu bisa dihindari. Masalah pasti akan timbul. Maka pertama-tama bisa kita dengan mundur diri sejenak, merenung dulu kenapa masalah ini terjadi, apa yang telah saya perbuat, dan ke depan apa yang saya bisa lakukan untuk memperbaiki situasi ini atau menghindarkan hal ini terjadi. Dan tentunya tetap harus ada komunikasi baik dengan atasan atau sesama rekan kerja, dan jangan usahakan untuk tidak untuk menghindari blaming, ya. Oh, kamu yang salah, saya tidak pernah salah. Itu tadi tidak disarankan. Jadi kalau memang ada kontribusi terhadap suatu kesalahan, kita pun juga harus mengakuinya. Jadi tidak langsung mengatakan si A yang salah, saya tidak salah. Well, let's have another question from the participants who are present here. How about Ernie? Ernie Juliet.
Hi, Mr. Todo. Hi, Mr. Andrew.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. You know, I'm just, I'm very interested to see your slide. So I'm interested about how to management stress. You know, I'm a student, but I'm also an employee at PT Gojek Indonesia. So, you know, I have many things to do every day. So I can avoid stress, how to face life every day with the current situation, pandemic situation. So can you suggest how I to manage my stress? Thank you.
Well, I'll try. I'm not a doctor.
I think you can suggest not I know everyone have another way how to manage. So that I just need have you any suggest for me?
Well, Luke, let me tell you, I'll try and give you a story about me a long, long time ago. And this may not answer your question, but it'll maybe give you, certainly help me a lot. And it's like this, you know, going to another country, humility. It was very, very simple advice. And I think the best advice, the advice you remember is the advice that you can relate to and simple. I mean, you know, we can talk for an hour on the subject of stress management. Years and years ago, it was my first job as a director of sales with an intercontinental hotel years and years ago, and I was loving it, but I was so stressed. I wasn't organized. I wasn't prioritizing my work. Everything was important. Everything had to be done now, and I was really in a terrible place. I mean, and what I was doing, I was then. This is the day before we had computers and stuff. I was putting all the paperwork in a drawer, a big deep drawer, and sort of forgetting about it. I thought this was the answer. Just don't worry, you know. Which obviously is not the answer, because my boss came into my office and he said, "Goodness me, you look terrible." I said, "Oh God, I'm stressed. He said, "Well, why?" I said, "Because I don't know. I'm not quite sure what to prioritize." And he saw my drawer and he saw all the paperwork in my drawer. He said, "What's that?" I said, "Well," so he took the paperwork out this drawer and he took me to a room and he laid all the paper out on a big, big table. And he said, "Right, let's go through all this together and let's realize what's going on. And let's get your life organized. Okay, and let's prioritize what's important, what can be delegated, what can wait." And it was a very, very valuable exercise. It probably doesn't answer your question. You're working for a Gojek, I think I heard you say, is that right? And you're a student, so you know you're working late at night, and so you're doing a lot. But you are young, so therefore you'll have strength and capacity. You know, your mind is fresher. I think you have to also have the focus on, and I hate to say this, rest, water. Something vocational that's not work related, that allows you to switch your mind off, let it rest, and then go back refreshed. And that's another one. Sometimes you've got to shut the book, turn the light off, and go away and leave it. And that's difficult, because you say, "Well, if I leave it, I'm not going to finish it. I must do." But actually, by doing that, you're resting. And when you go back, you're refreshed and you're renewed. Okay. I'm probably not the best person to speak to. I mean, I do manage my stress, I think, very well now. Probably when I was younger, I didn't. But that was also partially my culture, and being a Scottish person, we're a little bit more hot than the Javanese. Yep. We're not quite as patient. But stress is also is impacting your health, and you cannot let that happen, because, as I say, without health, the rest of it's utterly irrelevant. It's not important. Yeah. Okay. I don't know if that helps or not, but I guess we all have different ways of dealing with it. But thank you for the question. That was great. Thanks, Ernie. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Jadi saya akan mengulang poin yang tadi disampaikan oleh Pak Andrew. Jadi untuk mengatasi stres kita yang menentukan. Jadi kadang-kadang manusia
sorry, hello. Can I interrupt? Can I leave for 5 minutes and come back, please?
That's fine.
I have to see a guest in the lobby very, very quickly. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Please don't go.
Yes, that's fine, sir. We will wait.
Muted, Pak. You're muted, Pak.
Ya, maaf. Untuk mengatasi stres itu alamiah, pasti ada. Ya, apakah kita sibuk atau tidak, stres itu pasti akan ada. Seringkali stres itu timbul karena kita membebani pikiran kita dengan banyak hal. Oh, saya harus melakukan ini, saya harus melakukan itu. Oh, ini harus dikerjakan sekarang. Ini masih belum bagus, belum sempurna, harus diperbaiki. Nah, secara tidak langsung itu membebani diri kita sendiri. Nah, sebetulnya kita yang harus membuat keputusan. Kita harus putuskan Apa yang penting, apa yang genting. Hal yang genting harus diselesaikan. Yang penting ya diselesaikan, tapi tidak harus saat ini juga. Mungkin bisa 5 menit nanti atau 1 jam kemudian. Nah, apa yang bisa dikerjakan sendiri, apa yang bisa diserahkan kepada orang lain. Nah, itu yang kita perlu pahami. Jadi untuk mahasiswa yang bekerja sambil kuliah, nah memang ada kewajiban di kantor yang harus dipenuhi, ada juga kewajiban akademik yang juga harus dihadapi. Nah, tinggal bagaimana mengatur kegiatan dalam sehari. Jadi jam berapa sampai jam berapa saya bekerja, terus saya perlu transisi dulu nih. Nah, transisi itu bisa dipakai untuk istirahat. Waktu itu dalam perkuliahan di online, ada satu mahasiswa cerita tentang, ada satu mahasiswa yang punya rekan kerja orang Cina. Nah, orang Cina beneran yang dari Republik Rakyat Tionghoa. Dan dia melihat ada suatu keunikan dari teman-teman kerja yang dari Tionghoa. Rupanya orang Tionghoa ini punya kebiasaan tidur, ya sesudah makan siang, punya kebiasaan tidur 20 menit. Nah, kalau orang Indonesia habis makan siang, ngobrol-ngobrol, terus balik lagi ke kantor. Orang Tionghoa berbeda. Mereka habis makan siang, tidur dulu 20 menit. Setelah 20 menit, mereka bekerja. Ya, jadi itu ternyata malah recharge badan. Nah, itu ya, tiap orang memang punya jadwalnya berbeda-beda ya, jadwal kerja tiap orang tidak sama, jadwal kuliah tidak sama. Tapi ya itu tadi yang Pak Abram sarankan, perlu sekali memanage, mengelola waktu dengan baik, dan jangan pernah lupa untuk istirahat. Ya, so find a time to switch your mind off. Ya, jadi selalu sediakan waktu, dedikasikan waktu untuk istirahat. Minum banyak air, istirahat, olahraga itu juga bagian dari istirahat. Ya, tidur, tentu saja tidur yang cukup itu perlu sekali. Jadi kalau ada banyak PR, nah tugas mana yang perlu dikerjakan saat ini, PR mana yang bisa ditunda besok. Nah tentunya tiap PR punya kesulitannya masing-masing ya. Kalau yang harus dikumpulkan besok ya, itu dulu yang diprioritaskan. Tapi kalau masih pengumpulannya 2 hari, ya mungkin bisa dikerjakan belakangan. Nah, jadi jangan berusaha untuk mengerjakan segala sesuatu pada saat yang bersamaan, karena itu akan membebani dan ujung-ujungnya akan membuat kita stres. Okay, Mr. Abram, now I'd like to ask question about Java St. Andrew Society. So we have visited JSAS website, and it looks like there are a lot of activities done by JSAS. So in brief, could you tell us in brief about what Java St. Andrew is and what does it do in Indonesia?
Yeah, it's well, the website you looked at is, yeah, that's the current website. We're actually redesigning the website right now. In fact, hopefully we're going to launch our new website in by the end of this year. The society has done a lot for charity over the years, no doubt about it. I would say in the last maybe 7-8 years, it's maybe lost its way a little bit, until about 3 years ago we sort of got involved and trying to inject new energy into it to generate actually money for charities in Indonesia, to support, you know, worthy causes in Indonesia, to be part of the community in Indonesia. That's very important. What we're trying to do is bring a bit of Scotland to Java, if you like. And the way forward for us is to engage more proactively with Indonesian members. Okay, many years ago, the expatriate community in Indonesia and Malaysia and everywhere else was huge. Well, of course, it's much smaller now, because most of those jobs are being done by Indonesians, and that's exactly the way it should be. So that's natural, and that's good, and it's healthy. So we need to be more relevant to the Indonesians. So we're focusing on building stronger ties with Indonesians that have had further education in Scotland or have visited Scotland. That's the best place to start because they know something about Scotland, okay? And then through their communities, we can maybe extend our reach to more people. Whether it's Scottish food, whether it's our Scottish whiskey, yep, whether it's our Scottish fashion, whether it's education, whether it's art, whether it's music, we want it to be far more diverse, and we want to widen the interest, and it's not just about drinking whiskey and getting drunk. Okay, it's not. And if you look at websites for St. Andrew's societies anywhere in the world, the first picture you normally see is an old man with a big tummy drinking whiskey. And of course, that's not the image we really want to be portraying about Scotland to the young people today. I had a very interesting conversation with someone who works for Glenmorangie. Now, Glenmorangie is a very famous Scottish malt whiskey, okay? And it's owned by Louis Vuitton. And you've heard of Louis Vuitton, LVMH. And if any of you get a chance today, I would say go onto YouTube and type in Glenmorangie, Glenmorangie, Glenmorangie. They've got a fabulous new ad. It's about 1 minute long. Look at it because it's young, it's funky. Whether you drink or not, irrelevant. It's just a great, very, very well put together artistic advert with great music. And that's really the direction we want to go in. Yeah, we want people to know that there's a little place far away with a population of about 6 million people called Scotland. And we want to tell you about it, and we want you to love some of the things we do as well. So this, we hope, will therefore increase our membership, increase engagement from our membership, and that's very important. Having a big database is irrelevant if it's not engaged. So having engagement from the membership, which again we hope will drive more activities, will drive more opportunity to raise money, which will drive more opportunities for us to support worthy causes here in, particularly in Java, because it is the Java St. Andrews Society. There's also a St. Andrews Society in Bali, I think. So it's exciting, and as the chieftain, I lead the team, the committee. It's very different running a committee in a society to running your hotel or your business, because the chairman is not the boss. The chairman has to keep everyone happy all the time. So that's a bit hard sometimes, you know. You have to go by consensus. So yeah, so it's exciting, and we're active, and we're so hopefully you get a chance to look at the website, and I'll make sure your name goes on our database. Yeah, if any of you want to go on our database, let me know. Okay.
Can Indonesian become a member of Java St. Andrew?
Yeah, of course. That's the whole point. It's not about Scottish people. It's about Scotland, and we want Indonesians. That's our future. That's our opportunities to engage with Indonesian people. I mean, expats are welcome, but it's the Indonesian community that excites me.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. So now I'm thinking, as the head of department, I'm thinking about having my students learn English, the culture of English-speaking communities, and I'd like to start with the culture of Scotland. So is it possible if one day we invite Java St. Andrew to our campus and teach our students, you know, Scottish dance?
Sure, of course we can do that. Next year sometime. Yeah. Actually, my wife who is Indonesian, we used to have in Jakarta the Jakarta Highland Gathering every year, and it was at Karawaci. And they used to do Highland dancing, tug of war, all these sort of games. And my wife actually was the teacher for the Scottish dancers.
Wow.
But my wife's Indonesian. So when we got married, in Scotland, of course, we do dancing after the wedding at the evening, and because my wife's up there doing all the Scottish dancing, and people say, wow, God, how does your wife know all these Scottish dances? You know, is it because she likes Scottish dances? She likes Scottish men. That's why she married me.
Ya. Jadi teman-teman, tadi Pak Andrew, saya bertanya mengenai apa itu Java St. Andrew, dan Pak Abram menjelaskan bahwa Java St. Andrew adalah organisasi untuk menyatukan warga Skotlandia atau keturunan Skotlandia yang tinggal di Jawa dan Pulau Bali. Tetapi tidak hanya organisasi ini tidak hanya untuk warga keturunan Skotlandia, tapi juga terbuka untuk warga Indonesia. Sebab saat ini Java St. Andrew sekarang mengusung misi untuk merangkul orang Indonesia bisa menjadi anggota dari Java St. Andrew dan bisa terlibat dalam kegiatan-kegiatan yang dilakukan oleh Java St. Andrew Society. Sebab Java St. Andrew juga mengusung misi budaya, memperkenalkan budaya warga Skotlandia. Kita bisa belajar, bahkan setiap tahun ya, sebelum pandemik malah setiap tahun itu ada namanya Jakarta Highland Gathering di Karawaci. Jadi di Highland Gathering ini ada festival menari, olahraga khas Skotlandia, tarian khas Skotlandia, ada pertukaran budaya, bisa mencoba masakan-masakan khas dari Skotlandia. Jadi sebelum pandemik ini setiap tahun ada Jakarta Highland Gathering. Dan Highland Gathering ini sebenarnya tidak hanya di Jakarta, tapi seluruh dunia. Jadi pada hari yang sama, tanggal yang sama, ada Highland Gathering yang diselenggarakan oleh komunitas warga Skotlandia di negara manapun. Nah, jadi kalau di Indonesia, Highland Gathering-nya dilaksanakan di Jakarta. Baik, tadi di sini di kolom chat ada yang mau bertanya, Muhammad Iqbal Pratama. Oke, Muhammad Iqbal, apakah masih di sini bersama kita?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would like to ask about 9 point interest international etiquette. So, what if I have a little knowledge about international etiquette and how to interact naturally in the meeting or interact socially in the international conference? So, how to avoid stiffness, Mr. Andrew? Thank you.
To avoid stiffness? Well, I mean, if you go to Germany, then stiffness is very important because that's part of their culture. I mean, formality and stiffness it could be valuable. So it's just understanding where your meetings are. Of course, the famous example we were always taught when I was younger was, of course, when you meet Japanese people, how you bow and how you behave in a meeting, and when you should speak or when you shouldn't speak. But these are things that as you progress in your career, you need to be reaching out proactively to colleagues who have more experience to give you that guidance, or if you have friends in that country that are local nationals you trust, to reach out to them to give you guidance. I mean, obviously books are a great source, but at the end of the day, we are who we are. There's only one me, there's only one you. We have a personality, we have our own style and our own DNA. So, you're never going to be Japanese. And the Japanese person knows you're never going to be Japanese. So you're never going to be as good as them at doing what they do. I'm never going to be Indonesian. I'm never going to speak Bahasa as good as someone else. Or I won't have that magic dust that just makes you where you're from. And that's nothing wrong with that. So make the effort, but be natural. Okay. And I think that's the balance. The people know you're not a German, you're not Swedish. Make the effort, understand the etiquette, but still be natural, because that's part of the charm. When we meet people from other countries, we want to meet that person from the other country. I don't want to meet an Indonesian in Scotland who's just like me. There's no point, yeah. So I think it's a great learning, and it's interesting, but yeah, it's again something to enjoy.
I see, sir. Thank you.
Berikutnya ada pertanyaan dari Nurul Aini. Nurul, apakah masih di sini?
Yes, sir.
Oke, silakan Nurul, ajukan pertanyaannya. Dan tolong pasang webcam-nya ya.
Maaf sebelumnya saya lagi di luar.
Oh, ya sudah, nggak apa-apa. Oke, silakan. Ya, halo Nurul, silakan. Mic-nya kayaknya kamu mute ya.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Mr. Andrew, I'm sorry. I apologize, sir. If off camera, I have any question for you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
How do you visualize the future of remote learning after the pandemic? Thank you.
Wow, that's a good one. Remote learning. Well, actually, I think there's a lot of things that have come out of COVID that, or this, COVID that, we will continue to embrace, that's for sure. And, this virtual learning, online learning, many of my team have been very, very active in immersing themselves in this area. So it's now becoming almost a way of life. People feel it's a great thing to access, and they can learn online, which maybe we weren't thinking that way 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Mainly my senior leaders are getting immersed in that. Plus, Mandarin Oriental globally and Jardines globally have done an immense amount of online workshops, both specific to professional skills, but again, some vocational activity as well, which is interesting and fun, whether it's food or wine tasting or architecture. So I think that's great. I would say I have a very young family, so the virtual hasn't worked for them. I have twins that will be 5 next year, and virtual, they were probably 3.5 when this started. It didn't work, and I don't think we were lucky. They've had face-to-face tuition for the last 18 months, which has been great. But for us, for adults, I think this will continue. For business, also, I mean, people ask the question now: do we need to travel? Can we not do this virtually? And that will certainly continue. But I think the human animal, that's us, still like to be able to see each other and meet each other, and we still like to travel. And while business travel will be slower to return, leisure travel will lead the way, and it certainly is leading the way in our company. People that have the money and the wherewithal are traveling now, and they want to travel. They've been trapped, they want to travel. That's just it, yeah. But in terms of the online virtual learning, and I think that's what your question is, I think that will definitely continue. It's now a way of life, and we know how to harness it better. There's better channels to do that, whether it's Teams or Zoom or whatever it is. So that's an opportunity too. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Andrew, for your answer.
Di chat ini ada yang Undira Jaya. Ini siapa ya kalau boleh tahu? Ini nama aslinya. Undira Jaya ingin bertanya. Ya, apakah di sini ada yang bernama Undira Jaya? Mohon memperkenalkan diri. Zona, oke, Zona Velusida. Ya, silakan Zona. Zona Velusida, masih di sini?
Unmute dulu.
Maaf. Iya, Pak. I want to ask to Mr. Andrew, are there any differences between the recruitment of a new employee of local and foreign worker in other countries? Because here in Indonesia, we don't really differentiate, though sometimes the foreign workers are more valued than the local employee. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure I got that question. Are you, I didn't quite hear it. I didn't quite hear the question. Can you just maybe speak more slowly for me?
I apologize, sir.
No, I apologize. I'm the old person with bad ears. Yeah, not you. Just more slowly for an old man. Yep, thank you.
All right. Are there any differences between the recruitment of a new employee of local and foreign worker in other countries? Because here in Indonesia, we don't really differentiate, though sometimes the foreign workers are more valued than the local employee. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Zona, for that question. I think I made reference to something. I don't know what you're laughing at. You better calm down, otherwise I'm not going to talk to you. Right. Listen up. Here we go. I'll keep it short. There's less reliance on expatriates here in Indonesia, which is a good thing. Yep. And when I went to China to open a new business in China, my budget allowed for, I think, 12 expatriates in my team. And I only needed 3 because my Chinese colleagues were perfectly capable, educated, dynamic, passionate to do the job. We didn't need international, didn't need expats. When I came back to Jakarta in 2017, there were 13 expatriates here in the Mandarin Oriental Jakarta. There's now 5. I don't need those expatriates because I've got the talent here on the ground in Indonesia. So companies are, I know this is about international and going overseas and everything else, but it's not just about that. Companies will take people from the local community because if the ability and the talent's here on the ground, why would you want to get it from overseas? Why would you bring someone in? It's not needed. Now, in certain areas, specialization, yes, it is needed. You know, if you want someone that speaks Japanese fluently and writes Japanese, well, chances you may well bring someone in from Japan. You know, hey, you may not, you may. So we don't discriminate. We don't discriminate in our employment process here, but we certainly, in terms of we look for the right person for the job, and well, I suppose we do discriminate. We look at Indonesian colleagues first, but then that's natural, I think, yeah. And if we can't find the talent here, we'll look further afield overseas. But that said, you know, international companies also want to see migration within the company of colleagues from different parts of the world. I mean, in the last 3 months, I think 5 or 6 of my colleagues from this hotel are now working in Mandarin Oriental hotels overseas. Okay. We want, if an Indonesian colleague wants to have a chance to work overseas, I want to know that so we can then look out for them to do that. Okay. So we would encourage an Indonesian colleague, if they wanted to, we'd encourage them to work overseas and we'll help them do that. And that's important. I think that's important for our brand too, because it gives diversity and it gives a motivation to colleagues as well. Because if someone is looking to work here at Mandarin Oriental and we say, well, you could have a chance to work overseas, and that candidate says, well, how many people went overseas last year? And you say, well, actually none, then that's just words, okay? And you know, that's not good. When I reopened this hotel in 2009, in 2010, I lost 6 employees in a month to Singapore Airlines and Cathay Pacific Airlines. Okay, they were great colleagues. The Singapore Airlines and Cathay Pacific were in this hotel looking at my staff and saying, I don't want that one, I want that one. So they left. And I said to my director of human resources, I said, this is terrible. This is terrible. We've lost six of our staff. I said, no, this is fantastic. This is brilliant. This is wonderful. She said, why? I said, because these colleagues are Indonesian girls and boys, 22, 23 years old, working in a hotel in Jakarta as a waiter or a waitress or an assistant manager. They've got a chance to work for two of the best airlines in the world, travel internationally, get a chance to see the world. If you were 22 and 23 and you could travel, you would take the job. What I want to see is pictures of those colleagues in the 747 jumbo jet in their uniform landing in New York or taking a stopover in Buenos Aires, and I want those pictures posted in our staff notice boards downstairs, and I want those pictures posted in the universities in Jakarta. I want people to say, I want a job at Mandarin Oriental because I want to work in the airlines. Now that might sound strange. I love my brand, our brand is important, but other brands are good too. And sometimes there's synergies. Well, I was interviewing a girl about a month later, and I said to her, I said, why do you want to work at Mandarin Oriental? And she said, I want to work in the airlines. So I hired her, and she was great. And she stayed with us for 1.5 years, and she went to work in the airlines. And the six people that left us in 2010, 3 of them came back to work at Mandarin Oriental Jakarta. They did their 2-3 years in the airlines and they came back. So they were very positive because we celebrated when they got the job. We wished them luck. We had a wee party and we sent them away and they felt so good. They felt, wow, that is wonderful. So we don't own our staff. We don't own anyone. It's a free world. The back door isn't locked. So, and that's the environment I want to have here at Mandarin Oriental. I'm going off. I'm not really answering your question anymore. I just love this story, to tell this story. Because when people leave, we want them to leave with good heart, because they don't stay here forever. Life isn't like that. We move on. We are a stop on a journey in the career. And that is very important as a leader, to instill that sense of freedom and movement, because some people may stay a long time and some people may not. They're not better, they're not worse. It's just the dynamic market we're in, okay? Anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but I hope you like the story.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew. So, about working overseas, I mean, when you work overseas, Mr. Andrew, is there anything? Okay. So back to the opening lines that I say that the number of migrant workers are mostly from India and China, and not many people from Indonesia work overseas. So what do you think make Indian and Chinese workers successful in overseas? I mean, what can Indonesian learn? I mean, what traits can we learn from the Indian and Chinese migrant workers, in your experience?
Well, I would say there's more Indonesian workers overseas now than before, that's for sure. I suppose the advantage the Indian community always had was English. That was a huge plus for them. But now, if you now look at Indonesia, people's English is much, much better. And it's a fact of life. English and Mandarin are still the 2 main global languages, and it is that way, and that's that. I don't really know. Not quite sure how to answer that question, because I mean, I've worked with Indonesians for the most of my career. I've worked with Indonesians in Indonesia under Indonesian rules. Yeah, the labor laws of the Republic of Indonesia. But when we work overseas in, say, somewhere like Dubai, where it's a big melting pot, the locals don't really work in hotels, for example. They work in government offices, and then you're working under the rules of the United Arab Emirates. Okay, whether you're Indonesian, Thai, Scottish, American, it doesn't matter. You're all on the same plate. Yep. Which actually is quite nice because then you have a leveler. Yep. So I think at the end of the day, more specifically, rather than looking at the mass movement of overseas workers, I think for this audience, it's really the opportunity to have, you know, a career development in companies internationally that are going to develop you, you know, in other countries. Yep. So that's the sort of focus and journey we're looking at, and I think that's a lot. There's a lot more movement now than before, I think, in regard to that. People working in international companies here, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, or Unilever, or whatever, to have opportunities to work in their sites in other parts of the world. So, you know, I think if that's the desire of someone of Indonesia to get into a company where there may be an opportunity to transfer to another division, yep, in another part of the world. So there's no reason why Indonesians can't do that. That's whether it's Indian, Indonesian, Chinese, whatever. And Indonesians tend to be more focused. The movement of Indonesians in terms of the volume areas are working on cruise ships or as domestic helpers or in hospitality. In China, in regard to Chinese migration and movement, I think it's more in terms of construction, building, where China is investing in other countries with power plants and railways and that sort of stuff. But if you look at you know, European more, it's more in sort of consulting or hospitality or banking or those areas. Yeah. So yeah, so I'm not really answering the question, but maybe that's sort of some help. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Jadi untuk teman-teman, tadi Pak Andrew memberikan penekanan bahwa salah satu kelebihan pekerja migran India bisa bekerja di banyak negara adalah mereka memiliki kemampuan bahasa Inggris yang baik. Nah, jadi buat teman-teman yang ingin juga bekerja di luar negeri, ya pertama-tama mulailah dengan mengasah kemampuan bahasa Inggrisnya sebaik mungkin. Jadi ya inilah kesempatan bagi Anda. Bagaimana mungkin bisa bekerja di perusahaan internasional kalau bahasa Inggrisnya pun tidak kompetensinya rendah. Apalagi kan kalau berhadapan dengan klien-klien internasional. Jadi perlu sekali mengasah keterampilan bahasa Inggris agar bisa memiliki mobilitas, ya, kesempatan untuk mobilitas ke negara-negara asing. Ada lagi yang mau bertanya? Sudah jam 11.48 ini.
Saya sebentar boleh Pak, one question more.
Oh, Evelyn, ya silakan Evelyn, silakan ajukan pertanyaannya.
Good afternoon, Mr. Andrew. I'm Evelina in 4th semester. Last time I background in the hotel industry. As I know, hotel is one important for Indonesia. They are part of tourism and hospitality. What do you think Indonesia through the hospitality compared to Malaysia and Singapore of the human resources, special during pandemic? Because in South Asia, the resources, human resources is very competitive. As a general manager in international chains hotel, what do you think? Thank you for your time, sir.
Your question is about human resource management. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And how we approach. Sorry.
Sorry. Compared to the in country in South Asia like Singapore and Malaysia, because as you told, the India is very good English, so they have good resources, become a competitor in international competitor in hospitality industry in the world. So what do you think about Indonesia between Singapore and Malaysia? What do you think? Is it low, middle, or higher than Singapore and Malaysia?
In terms of a tourist destination or what?
Resources, human resources.
Okay, I'm not quite clear how you're. I'm not quite clear on the structure of your question. Is it how we're managing human resources during COVID, or how are Indonesians compared to Malaysians and Singaporeans in terms of delivering hospitality experience? I don't understand.
Probably the last one. Maybe Evelyn is asking about the quality of human resource, Indonesian human resource working in hospitality industry in comparison to Malaysian and Singapore.
I see. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, good. Is that right, Evelyn? Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I would say hands down, Indonesia, the best by 1,000 miles. But I'm obviously biased, and I say that in terms of the culture of what I believe the culture of hospitality and welcome that Indonesia offers to visitors. I'm not saying Singapore doesn't welcome visitors or Malaysia doesn't welcome visitors. I'm just saying that I think this country is miles ahead of those countries in terms of the sincerity and depth of welcome and hospitality. And also Thailand, where I've also worked before. And I love those countries, don't get me wrong. And I think it's how do we harness that and how do we develop leaders, Indonesian leaders for international brand hospitality providers. Because if you look at Jakarta and look at the general managers of all the international brands here in the city, Hyatt, Kempinski, Ritz-Carlton, Marriott, Shangri-La, Langham, Four Seasons, Mandarin Orient, they're all expatriates, general managers. You know, and that, I'm very happy because I've got a job, but, you know, long term, that needs to change. And I think this nicely comes back to, in a way, what the whole presentation today was about, in terms of what tools and skills do you need to be a leader, okay? And sometimes that's harder to be in your own country because of the cultural, perhaps, rules. So you see here in Indonesia, and I am not for 1 minute criticizing the cultural rules of Indonesia. So let's get that quite clear. But we're having an adult conversation. You have a younger colleague here who's got the talent and the ability to be promoted, working beside their boss, who's older, who has reached their limit. So how do you catapult the younger colleague over the older colleague and still maintain the relationship with the older colleague? And that's challenging anywhere in the world. How do you develop leaders that can make hard decisions in an international setting? And you remember I mentioned earlier on today about, I'm not here to change the culture of the country, but I'm here to protect and develop the culture of the company, which is an international culture of service, delivery of service, compliance, consistency, maintaining standards, independent audits, accountability, making tough decisions, being flexible in leadership, managing resources, being resourceful, being nimble, making quick decisions, beating your competition. Sometimes culture gets in the way. And that's, how do you manage that? And that's the key, right? How do you protect the culture? Because it is the culture of the country and that's not going to change and that's good. But how do you still run that business with the people from that country? And that is, your question actually quite nicely brings us back to the whole presentation this morning and how all those elements tie in together. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Thank you, Mr. Abram. So we have reached, I think we are almost, we are nearing 12 o'clock. So I think
Okay, super.
This webinar is quite long, so thank you for your willingness, Mr. Abram, to be the guest speaker and also extend the duration of this webinar. There are so many questions from our students.
Great, fantastic. That's what we want. We want questions, yeah?
Yeah, more discussion. That's right. Now, before we, okay, I think I'm going to hand over my turn to the MCs of our today's event. So, Mr. Wahyu.
Okay, thank you. Baik, terima kasih Pak Todo Sibuea yang telah memandu berjalannya sesi penyampaian materi. Lalu kami ucapkan juga terima kasih kepada Bapak Andrew Abram selaku narasumber yang telah memberikan pengalaman, pengetahuan, dan ilmu baru kepada para peserta. Semoga apa yang telah disampaikan oleh Bapak Andrew hari ini dapat bermanfaat bagi seluruh peserta kuliah tamu online. Where is Yohana?
Well, thank you, Mr. Todo Sibuea, for chairing the talk session. And we would like also to thank Mr. Abram as the speaker who has shared his experience, provided new knowledge, and broadened our mind about working and building career in international companies. Hopefully, what has been delivered today can be useful for all participants.
Okay. Selanjutnya, kami persilahkan kepada Bapak Todo untuk dapat memberikan salam penutup kepada kuliah tamu pada hari ini. Kepada Pak Todo, kami persilahkan.
To wrap up this event, we would like to invite Mr. Todo Sibuea to deliver the closing remarks on kuliah tamu online today. To Mr. Todo Sibuea, the time is yours.
Terima kasih teman-teman mahasiswa dan peserta-peserta dari luar kampus Undira. Saya tadi perhatikan ada Ketua Program Studi Sastra Inggris dari Universitas Krida Wacana, Ibu Sigfrida. Terima kasih telah menyempatkan hadir. Kemudian lagi ada Ibu Endang Sulistianingsih dari UIN. Saya lupa UIN yang mana nih. Tapi kita bertemu kemarin hari Jumat di webinar UIN Syarif Hidayatullah. Nah, ada juga satu Prodi Sastra Inggris dari IAIN. Nah, terima kasih sekali ibu-ibu Prodi yang sudah datang terlibat dalam pertemuan Prodi Sastra Inggris Undira hari Sabtu ini. Kehadiran ibu-ibu sangat baik sekali bagi kami dan juga mahasiswa-mahasiswa yang sudah hadir. Terima kasih sekali. Semoga teman-teman mahasiswa bisa memetik pelajaran dan manfaat dari penjelasan yang kita dengarkan sepanjang webinar ini. Mungkin di lain waktu kita bisa berkolaborasi lagi dengan Java St. Andrew. Perhaps one day I will invite Java St. Andrew to have a cultural exchange with our students, because our students are very eager to learn about Scottish cultures like Scottish dances.
I'll even come in my kilt. Okay, you'll see me in my dress.
Wow.
All right, so we will learn about that perhaps next year, yeah, when pandemic is over and everything is safe, it's all right for people to convene. So I think I will invite St. Andrew Society again to our campus. So once again, Mr. Andrew, as head of the English department, we are thankful. We express our gratitude for you to be the speaker and share your knowledge and expertise to us. And hopefully we can collaborate again in the future.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an honor, and thank you for letting me share some thoughts. I hope it's not been too boring for everyone, but I've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And if any of you got lots of money, come and have some food in my hotel. Yep. Bye.
Pak Wahyu.
Baik. Baik, sebelum acara ini berakhir, kita akan melakukan sesi foto bersama ya. Kami mohon kepada para peserta ya untuk dapat mengaktifkan kameranya sebentar.
Okay. Lastly, before this session ends, we would like to do a photo session together. To the speakers, moderator, and participant, please activate your camera.
Okay, I'll take the picture ya. Okay, the first the first one, okay. And then the second page here. The third page. Okay, there's not much in the third page who opens their camera. That's fine.
Mohon buka kamera masing-masing ya, tolong aktifkan.
Okay, the fourth page. And the last page. Okay. All right. So that's it. Baik, terima kasih kepada para hadirin sekalian yang telah hadir di kuliah tamu online dengan topik Knowledge and Skills to Thrive in International Companies.
Okay, thank you so much for all attendees who are attend this event today with the theme of knowledge and skills to thrive in international companies. We are very honored to have you with us today.
Oke, semoga kita semua dapat bertemu kembali pada kuliah tamu online selanjutnya. Kegiatan webinar yang telah berlangsung akan selalu diunggah pada kanal YouTube Universitas Dian Nusantara. Segala informasi kegiatan yang diselenggarakan oleh Universitas Dian Nusantara akan kami publikasikan melalui situs web kami di www.undira.ac.id.
Hopefully we can meet again in the next webinar because Dian Nusantara University regularly organizes webinar activities every month. All the webinars that have already taken place will always be uploaded on our YouTube channel, Universitas Dian Nusantara. All information on Dian Nusantara University activities will be published through the website at www.undira.ac.id.
Terakhir, saya mewakili program studi Sastra Inggris Universitas Dian Nusantara mengucapkan banyak terima kasih serta mohon maaf bila ada kekurangan dalam penyelenggaraan kuliah tamu online hari ini. Tanpa mengurangi rasa hormat, acara kuliah tamu online hari ini saya akhiri. Selamat siang, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih semuanya.
Finally, on behalf of English Literature Department of the University, I would like to say thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sorry. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
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 Everyone. Have a nice day.
Hadir ya, juga Ibu Rita dari Undira, terima kasih atas kehadirannya tadi.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. See you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Oke. Baik, ini sudah bisa keluar ya, Pak.
Oh no.